This is going to be a controversial one based on the comments from my last video, but I think this is one of, if not the best episode of The Boys that exists. Definitely the best one this season, probably the best one in the last few years. It is unbelievable, the swing from episode 4 to episode 5. And I know, I'm going to get past this one early. A lot of people will say, you said last week had a lot of pointless stuff that was all just setting up the future show of Hot Rising. And in general, it didn't feel like we were really doing anything new at a point this late in the game. People want to move the plot forward, they want their characters to develop, and it's just more of the same shouting that we always get every episode. People say, well, how could you dislike that episode, but watch episode 5 and not have the same reaction? And to be honest, I don't even really know what to say. This episode was better than the last episode, and every episode this season in pretty much every way. Better written, better acted, better shot. It was about something new. We moved all of the plot lines forward. We learned a lot of new things about very important characters, and you can finally see the end game. We have it, like the last 3 episodes are coming, and I can see how this is going to go forward. We're going over some of our main characters' flaws, but also looking again at what they care about, because that's what this episode was about. It's 5 stories about a character who wants something, but all this superhero nonsense is getting in the way. And how do these different characters deal with that? I said last week, and I've been doing this the whole time, I like to give MVPs to the people that made the episodes great. I think everybody was doing an amazing job this episode. It is hard to pick just one person. And even though I gave Valerie Curry one of the MVPs last episode, it's hard not to say that her performance is really what brings this episode together. But I think what I really appreciate most about this episode has to be the writing. This is one of the funniest episodes of the show in a very long time. It makes jokes about everything. It makes jokes about these characters, about superheroes, about movies, about superhero movies, all of it. At least it's all entertaining. Maybe it isn't like groundbreaking stuff, but I really liked it. And it's the kind of thing that only this show can do. But okay, I want to talk about this whole episode, One Shots. This one is directed by Phil Segrisha, and it's written by Julina Niera. And A, I'm bringing that up because I think they did a great job. But B, they're also the pair, the director and writer, that are credited with the finale. Episode 8 of Season 5 is apparently also them, and at least that makes me really excited. So I gotta give Philip and Julina the MVPs this week. Even though, again, in my heart, it's hard not to give it to Valerie Curry, especially because, spoilers for the episode, this is her last one, probably, unless there's flashbacks or she's a zombie also, or something. Probably not. So I want to go through the episode, talk about why I think it was so great. And I know there's a lot of people on the internet, I've seen it in the comments for the other video, that will disagree with me. I will say, hear me out, because I think this episode really does have everything in it. And I understand it is presented in a way that is very different from the other episodes. I think it is designed to make it seem like it is about the minor characters, but in reality, this is one of the most plot significant episodes of the show. And not only do the minor characters have arcs, but the major characters also have arcs within the episode. It's just the framing I think makes it seem different. We get 5 title cards for 5 characters we're going to follow, and the first is Firecracker. And when this episode started, I was like, oh my god, is this a Firecracker episode that's just her? Because I'm totally in. It's not, but I would say she's close to the main character this episode because she seems to get the most screen time, and she's the story who we revisit later on. A couple things I love. I love the dynamic between Firecracker and Oh Father. The idea that they are both technically trying to do the same thing and should be on the same team, but because of this environment that Homelander set up, they feel like they have to compete with each other. It creates this great tension between Valerie Curry and Daveed Diggs, who I also cannot give enough praise to. He's so funny in this episode. This character feels like he has been part of the show the whole time. And even though he's probably only been on screen for like 10 minutes, it's really fun to see someone like Firecracker, who has made her place on this team the pump up Homelander, compare Homelander to God, talk about how Homelander is just like God, have her position be threatened by Oh Father, who seems ready to just do whatever. Like, he will say whatever he needs to say, do whatever he needs to do. And I think if the show's gonna go for another season, eventually we'd find out that he also had some bizarre childhood that set him on this path, and he's actually not as terrible of a guy or something. You know, it's kind of a bummer that Firecracker is dead, because Firecracker's such a good antagonist for Annie. Firecracker does feel like the kind of opportunistic, evil Annie, who, while Annie had a lot of principles that she stuck to, and was part of what made that character so interesting, Firecracker has gone in the other direction. She's clearly trying to manipulate some people. Now, she also does clearly believe in some things, but it is interesting to have her and Starlight in the same story. Actually, even their powers are pretty similar. And one of the reasons I love this episode is it really did kind of put everything that I didn't think was really working up until this point in season 5 on the right track, or just fully clarified it into a way it's like, oh, okay, that's what we were doing with that? Fine, that's great. I like that now. One of the first instances of that is the idea that Homelander doesn't want to be a prophet. He doesn't want to be anything but God. So I like that this week, Homelander goes out of his way to say, I'm not just some god or one of the gods, I'm the god. And it's fun to watch Firecracker and Father squirm under that realization that they are helping someone usurp the religion that they seem to genuinely care so much about. We don't really know with Father, but it does really seem like, and we get this in the interaction at the diner, Firecracker does care about her church. Her connection to that church is really important, and the religious teachings of the church. And like, she's a character who, for a while, I wasn't completely sure how much she knew, how much she understood, like, what she's doing is wrong. And it's the first time I'm like, no, she knows. She's known the whole time. She thinks it'll be worth it in the end, but like, she knows what she's doing is wrong. I love the idea of a Homelander Bible, because Trump did that too. Again, these are things that in any other situation I think would feel on the nose. And I think Kripke said this week. He said like something to the effect of, when we started doing some of this religion stuff, we were thinking, well, it's going to be a lot. Like, people might not buy into the idea that Homelander thinks he's God. That's going to be so out there. Then the week before it happened, Trump makes a picture of himself as God, and it's like, nope, that's just what is happening now. We are just living in this world. And part of me wishes they knew that was where this was going to end so that they could have gone bigger, because I think they probably would have. A great quote here that I'm definitely going to try to use at least once in my life.
We ate Arby's. After all, we're the Cheesecake Factory.
But yeah, what was so great about the writing of this episode is it played so much of it really seriously. The conversation between Firecracker and her pastor was not a comedy bit at all. It is the realest we have ever seen this character. You know, we understand why she cares about religion, why this has been difficult for her, but ultimately, like, why she doesn't really feel like there's anything she can do. Now, I think Valerie Curry makes a lot of great faces in this episode, a lot of like uncomfortable smiles and twitches, something she's been doing a lot of for at least this season. But this episode's full of them. It's funny that Soulja Boy, and you see this later, but seems to be getting pushed towards Homelander because of how he feels bad for someone who is treated like he was. Someone who can understand him as the best, strongest superhero ever. And someone who he feels like is a reflection of himself. You know, when people judge Homelander, they're kind of judging him. That's something that I think Soulja Boy up until this point just did not acknowledge at all. Like, he didn't like Homelander, he thought he was weird. But now I think because he's being so weird that everybody is just talking about it, like, you cannot avoid it. Feels like Soulja Boy kind of has to dig in. Maybe it's a paternal instinct or something, but I think it feels more like an underdog kind of thing. He sees himself as an underdog, and he sees Homelander in this situation. Even though he is a god trying to get immortality, he's able to see some of that humanity and vulnerability in Homelander, because Homelander is so desperately looking for some sort of role model, father figure, mother figure, whatever. And he's opening up to Soulja Boy in a way that he almost never does. There is something really interesting, though, about Homelander in this episode, if you read into how Firecracker's plotline plays out. Maybe you could just chalk this up to, like, good writing, economical writing. However, in a show with a character who can hear everything if he's listening for it, who can read your heart rate, who has access to all of the information, all the computers and data and everything. The fact that Firecracker has this conversation with their pastor about their dinners, specifically the fish fries, praying mantis is attacking their church in Daytona. What I guess it kind of suggests is not just that this happened and this is like a real breaking point for Firecracker, which it is, and it does seem like it would have happened anyway. But I think you could read this as Homelander targeting Firecracker specifically, like destroying her church and forcing her to, in the same day where she just thanked this pastor for practically raising her, to lie about him on TV. And the lies are so specific. Again, the dinners, being alone, the fish fry. It feels like either that's in Firecracker's book, and she talks about it all the time, and everybody knows this about her, or Homelander was listening to that conversation, and he said, I need to punish her because she is making moves behind my back and she doesn't believe in me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to destroy her church and make her talk about it on TV. And the thing that I think is the most interesting about it is that it's not just her church. 10 churches got raided, and I kind of read that as like he just had him raid 10 churches in Daytona because he doesn't really care. He doesn't know which is which. You know, he knows she's got a pastor. He knows it's one of them. He said, just raid all the churches and we'll figure out which one it was after the fact. Like, it is both specific but not precise in a way that feels very Homelander. And then the Daytona church monologue is just great. Watching Firecracker break down, make that last big compromise with herself. She doesn't care about politics, family, or anything like that. She's willing to throw pretty much everybody under the bus except her church, and Homelander forces her to do that, and that is the point where this character is completely broken. Loved it. Great performance. Really well shot. Love the time. That's something I really appreciated about this episode. There's a lot of pauses, a lot of timing between just like shots of characters walking, waiting to do something, or like this, characters hesitating and really thinking, and you can see that turmoil in their head. Like sometimes I think, and you could kind of see it last week, a lot of this writing gets down to like a lot of yelling and cursing and stuff. But in reality, like a good episode of The Boys has a lot of balance. And this episode does still have huge moments, but they're balanced out really well by these quiet, uncomfortable, sad moments. We see that also in the Black Noir one-shot, which, oh my god. I said last week, I really don't like what we're doing with Black Noir, because it seemed like we were doing something and now we're just not doing it, and it's like, what's the point of this character even? It's almost like Eric Kripke in the show heard that and like, oh, you don't trust that I thought about all of this? You know, how about here's a little arc where he's going to get this little dream and it's going to make complete sense. It's going to totally gel with this character, and we're going to see it ripped away from him because the superheroes and Homelander are this void that sucks everything in. Forces these guys to constantly compromise. So we learn this week that Black Noir is in fact an actor, and that's his whole deal, which makes sense because he is one of the few superheroes that exist in this universe that has a plausible secret identity. Like sure, Firecracker can go out without makeup on and put on a cap and kinda not look like herself, but like if people were looking for her, they'd find her. Nobody even knows what Black Noir looks like. And what he's doing here is being an actor. He's playing a part, so why wouldn't he be doing that in other situations? I love bringing back PJ Byrne's Adam Bork. This is a character that's been around for a very long time, and we've seen him go from hotshot producer to kind of a failure. He worked at Godokin for a little bit, and here he is now, trying to make a show that both seems more legit than what he's used to working on, and at the same time, also feels bad. Like, it is really fun that this character just seems to have bad instincts, and you know what? Dumber musicals have worked, especially musical biopics, than a Bee Gees musical biopic. So who knows, maybe he's got amazing taste, but I'm expecting this is supposed to read as kinda tacky. I'm kind of wondering when it came to this plotline, because part of me sees this character, sees this arc, and goes, wait, are we doing Wonder Man? And then it's like, wait a second, am I just thinking that because he's a black man? Is that what there is, or is there more to it than that? And I do think there's more to it than that, besides the fact that they kind of dress the same, but that is the way that like actors tend to dress, with the sweatshirt and the jeans. You have an actor who wants to act, who has superpowers, so he does not want to use, but he must. Working with a washed-up veteran, and the washed-up veteran tells him, like, you've got the stuff, you're a great actor, but you gotta get out of your own head, you gotta start acting, being, and feeling. Like, what Bork says to Black Noir, not very different from what Trevor says to Simon in that first episode of Wonder Man when they're in the bathroom. He's like, get him up. So, like, these characters do feel very similar. I have to imagine The Boys makes a lot of its moves pretty far in advance, because any television show does. I also kind of think maybe they saw this one coming, because Wonder Man has been in the works for a while. I would not be surprised if they were like, oh, you know what? That can be what this character's up to, is Wonder Man stuff. We'll do a little mini one of those for him. But the reason this works so well, and the reason I think Firecracker is fine, because it is pretty serious. Like, there's jokes throughout her one shot, but I would say this one feels way more like a comedy, right? This is what we're used to from The Boys. However, what's great about Black Noir bit is that they play it completely straight. All of these scenes where Bork is just telling Black Noir, like, you're a great actor, you're gonna make it someday, you're a genius. Like, none of this is undercut by the fact that, like, he's bad at this, or Bork is bad at this. You know, all of the serious moments are still serious moments where characters say kind of silly things, but you don't lose any of the emotion. Also, I was kind of curious about this. I really looked this up, but I couldn't find a good answer. So if anybody knows what they mean by this, please let me know. I don't know if barrel roll is a theatrical term. I know barrel roll is a term most people associate with Star Fox and flying, right? And we know this Black Noir can fly, but I guess when he said that line, I'm like, oh, is that something that we're supposed to read as like his brain's kind of thinking about this in terms of superheroing? Or is that just a theater term that's so inside that I've never even heard it before? Because that kind of stuff shows up on The Boys. It's part of why it's so fun. Two of my all-time favorite real world seeping into The Boys gags come in this episode. Maybe my two favorite they've ever made. I really like the Pepsi commercial. I thought that was very funny. But like, man, Bork describing the Deep being an annoying actor as
he's a Jared Leto level baby bitch.
It has to be one of them. In a week where I'm releasing a video on Nandovi Movies about how they should probably kick Jared Leto off that Masters of the Universe movie, I'm glad that that is just such a common fact that he is annoying and he does all this annoying method acting stuff, and also there's all these other problems. I like that it's made it into the shorthand of this show. The same way that like working on a project with Leo is like shorthand for something prestigious. This character's going up in the world. Acting like Jared Leto means they're being a real prick and everyone hates them. I think that's funny. I mean, speaking of characters awkwardly smiling on other characters, I also could not get over the reaction that O Father has to when the Deep suggests that they put in the Bible.
Oh yeah, and if you could throw in a commandment about how it's not cool to try and bone another bro's girl.
And responds with,
we have that. That already exists.
You know, Daveed Diggs is an actor who's been all over the place. Most people probably know him from Hamilton. I feel like I was introduced to them through like Kimmy Schmidt. But it does seem like a lot of their work is in comedy. And a lot of these guys are actors that do a lot of work in comedy. Like Jack Quaid has a sketch comedy group, which is cool. And I think that's cool. I like sketch comedy. And it's always fun to watch a comedic actor play something serious. But it's also just fun to see a comedic actor in a show like this play a silly character. And the only thing better than that is a silly character who knows better. And in this case, he seems to also. And it's that same feeling of like you go to a job and you're expecting everybody to be smart and you're expecting everybody to know what they're doing. And you stay there for a week and you're like, oh, about half these people don't know what they're doing. You know, it's funny watching that dawn on O Father, although I have a feeling Ashley probably clued him in the fact that, like, most of these guys are idiots, especially the Deep. Also, gotta give it to the costumers. Deep's undercover outfit is very funny. Just the exact kind of thing that character would wear. And yeah, there was something about the construction of this vignette that felt very special, very unique. Like, we are still getting jokes about how Bork does all of the drugs, and even weirder drugs than you can possibly imagine, but it's not the punchline. And that's why I think the scene feels so funny the whole time. We're not taken out of the melodrama by the joke. The joke is the melodrama. Obviously, I'm not going to show it, but it's crazy that this is the second time this year in a show by Amazon about superheroes for adults. The disemboweling has been a big part of the whole deal. That was weird to see. And like, credit to Nathan Mitchell. I really like how he played that death. We're at a point where I don't think we're going to have too much more time with this character. I imagine what we're setting up here with him and kind of with Firecracker, although the Firecracker situation seems to have resolved itself. But with him, with Sage, like, there's a couple of characters going into the finale. We don't fully know what their deal is, and we want to solidify that. Say, this is how they feel right now. This is why they feel that way. Maybe that's going to lead them to some last big decision in the finale. And maybe what I think people are kind of shortchanged by and why people don't like this episode. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of reasons, but one of them is I really like this character now. Like, if this was season 3, I would be really excited for Black Noir 2 season 4, Black Noir 2 season 5. But now it's like, we might see him a couple times in the next 3 episodes, and that's it. And that would have been true of Firecracker. That's also true of Sage. We have a lot of characters to juggle here. And if anything, it just feels like a bummer they're showing us this fun part of this character that we're not going to be able to really enjoy outside of this moment. But that still means it's a good moment. Also love taking shots at RFK Jr. Vax on Vax is a pretty funny title for a book like that. Although you figure it would be Vax on, Vax off, but maybe that's already a thing. Or is it like Rax on Rax, Vax on Vax? Is that what it's going for? I don't know. It's funny that the Deep is reading this book, though. The look on his face is very funny, especially considering he's the product of genetic testing. They all are. They've all been given superpowers, ones that he seems to like, or at least, you know, got him where he is, and yet he's very, very worried about the vaccines. It's funny. And that plotline leads to what has to be the single, and I know how this is going to sound because this show does so many bizarre things, but maybe the single strangest little clip of the whole episode, which is Terror's dream about Homelander. I like that this, and I know this was a thing in the comics, I think this is somewhat established in the early seasons of this show, that Terror has been trained to hump a doll of Homelander because of how much Butcher hates Homelander, and I think that's cute. And obviously we haven't done much with Terror recently because it's expensive to have a dog on set. That makes sense. I am glad that we're getting back to that, and that's another thing that feels like, ooh, this feels like Old Boys. This feels like kind of a family. People that live together and work together, and I feel like that's why maybe the Terror bit feels so nice after the Toxoplasmosis episode, because like, we spend so much time with these characters yelling at each other. They're constantly telling each other how this one's a bad person and you are a horrible father and you're not a good boyfriend and blah blah blah, and they're always whining. That used to not be the case. They used to kind of like each other, and they still do like each other, that's clear, but they, like, in this case it feels like they respect each other, right? They work together, they're in a war together, but they haven't acted like a family, the team. But I think what's great about this Terror episode is it kind of resets the perspective. Not just the perspective of the dog, but the perspective of the characters. Because they're all having this moment of like, what do I want? What's important to me? How are the superheroes getting in the way of that? MM is like, what's important to me is that my family is okay, and the superheroes are getting in the way of that by forcing me to kill all of them, and I'm gonna have to sacrifice myself to kill them to keep my family safe. Like, it is a very logical thought process that MM has gone through. And again, speaking of things that answered questions that I was like, what's going on here? I did think it was weird that we hadn't really done anything with MM's family, and now it's like, oh, you think that's just because we forgot? No, he is actively avoiding thinking or talking about them because he knows that would derail everything he's doing right now. Or at least he thinks that, right? Because Butcher thinks he's wrong about that, but at the same time, Butcher kind of believes the same thing. Really, the only character who doesn't believe that is Huey. Like, Huey is the moral center of this group, but the gravity of Butcher is starting to pull some of the rest of these characters into his orbit, into this very nihilistic, gotta sacrifice yourself to kill Homelander, there's no other way, we're bad people, we do bad things, we can't be happy, you know, like, we're so cool and we're so tough and we don't care about anything. And I love that, to put that in perspective, the Terror eats some chocolate, everybody gets scared because he might die, and for a second, they're thrown back into reality of like, oh no, we care about each other. We care about this dog. We care about things. That's the whole point. Like, we have to figure out a way to care about things and save the world at the same time, because cutting it off isn't going to work. And I love that that realization is what brings Butcher to this point of, you know what? Okay, we'll try to save the other soups. Because if the point you're trying to make is, well, this is a filler episode, nothing changed. That's an enormous change. That is the biggest character change that has happened this entire season. Billy Butcher went from 100% believing it is not worth even kind of entertaining the idea of not killing every soup, even though the two that he likes are ones that he seems to think shouldn't die. But he's like, it's all or nothing. There's no other way. He's gone from that to now, there is another way. We're going to try to find another way. We're going to solve the trolley problem. That is like the most important moment so far in this season. And the fact that it came from the dog, this relic of an earlier point in their lives where they were simpler people. You know, in these simpler concerns, it feels so right. And also, my cat Mortimer is on my lap. I know my camera's not because I haven't fully set up the office yet. He's been loving this season because we had She-Line, they talked about toxoplasmosis, and now you have a guy that runs around and slams into stuff, which is what Mortimer does all the time, especially after he uses the litter box. But okay, yeah. And I like that the Frenchie-Kimiko relationship is now in a weird place, but it's not fully over. I like that that's complicated for everybody pretty much. Yeah, I don't know. I just think this is really interesting. And this is the kind of thing it feels like. Honestly, it's a little bit similar, but it feels like in Spider-Man 2. There's that moment where Peter gets the cake. On its face, it's a silly moment. It doesn't matter. Obviously, a lot of wild stuff's going on in that movie. But there's just that one moment where Peter gets a second to chill and kind of reassess. You know, take a breath. I feel like that's what this moment was for the boys. And you need those in a show like this, in any show. Figure out what's important. But that was not all, because then we checked in on Sister Sage, a character who I've been saying, hey, I really wish I liked this character, but she's just not doing anything interesting. And I feel like she keeps saying she's doing interesting stuff, but what is it? What's her whole deal? And I feel like there's two ways you could play this character from where we are right now. She can have an incredibly complicated master plan that we look back on and watch her always making moves. And if you watch all of the episodes and you can see her in the background talking to people, like, oh, this is when she made this move. It can be like the end of a Saw movie where it turns out one of the guys was in on it the whole time. We'd see all the flashbacks. It would feel really earned. And that's how a character like that would work. On the other hand, they have the other option of, without discrediting her and making her seem like a fraud, she could just want it to be going badly. And that's what we end up with here, is Sister Sage hates all these guys, and she always kind of has. That's always been part of her story. She doesn't like Homelander. She doesn't take any of these guys seriously. They don't take her seriously. And turns out all she wants is peace and quiet, which is fun, because the first time Homelander meets her, she is in her apartment just reading a book, you know, just doing her thing. And it's funny because when you look back at it, it really is that petty of a hatred she has for Homelander. Like, she just wants to read, she just wants peace and quiet, and she is happy doing that. And sure, you know, maybe she's not fully happy, but like now she's looking back, she's like, no, I was happy then. And if you go back to her first scene, Sister Sage is reading and she is interrupted by Homelander, and you can see her in her head going like, ugh, it's going to be annoying. And it is. And I love that that's all this character wants, is just a war that wipes out all these idiots, and then she can just chill. And I like Ashley as the most conflicted member of the Vought crew. You know, it makes sense because she's seen a lot. She's been around for a while. She's been very close to Homelander, kind of always known how dangerous he was. But I think it's fun. I think the Malignant is weird. I don't like looking at it, but that's part of its thing. It's supposed to be weird, so that's good. But yeah, I don't really want to go too far into the Sister Sage bit because we don't get as much time there. But just that realization that she does have a plan. She does have something she's after. It's not a very complicated plan, but she has a goal is so refreshing for this character. Again, Firecracker, Black Noir, Sister Sage, like characters who have been here for a while and we never fully knew what their deal was, and now we do, at least enough to put them into the finale with some inertia. Loved it. And then you have the final story, and this is the Soldier Boy story. Now this I would say is like pretty much what these episodes usually are. Soldier Boy wants to find the V1, Stan Edgar doesn't tell him where, but then Stan Edgar suggests they see Mr. Marathon. And this is where we meet the big star of the episode. This is Jared Padalecki, everyone's third favorite Rory boyfriend. Well, not that true. Out of the big three, he was my least favorite, but there were other ones that were worse. Also, apparently on a show called Supernatural with this Soldier Boy guy, so that's fun. He's incredible here. He should be on this show as a regular cast member. He should get his own show. I don't know what it would be, but I love this Hollywood cokehead super speedster, because our super speedster, A-Train, you treated him more like an athlete. He was training, he kind of felt like he had to present that image, whereas Mr. Marathon is the kind of guy who will talk your ear off at a party and like pitch you a movie or a TV show that they don't realize is already a very popular movie or TV show. Now, like I said, I think this was one of the funniest episodes of the season. There will probably be no joke more tailored directly to me than the idea that there is not only a Vought cinematic universe, but the Sony side cinematic universe that the Sony movies try to pretend is the same thing, and we're all playing in one big sandbox, but in reality, everybody that knows the situation knows they are not the same thing. They are the cheap knockoff. They are the Arby's to the Cheesecake Factory of the VCU. But how do you present that idea? I mean, you could have the character just say, like, he's in the bad Sony knockoff movies, which is what they do, which is funny.
These were made where washed-up soups go to die. Sony Pictures TV.
But they create fake posters using iconography that only us, the real, complete sickos who watch way too many of these movies and think about way too much of this stuff, will recognize as the poster for Into the Spider-Verse, which does not belong here because that one is good. Then the poster for Madam Web, the poster for Venom, Let There Be Carnage. Like, it is such a specific joke that they are taking shots at Madam Web. I love that Madam Web is at a point culturally where you can make jokes about it. I also love that it does kind of have a visual language. Like, you'd see a poster and go, oh, that's supposed to be a Madam Web homage. That's great. And it makes this world feel real, because this is what would happen. There would be the good ones and there would be the bad ones. And the ones we watch, like Dawn of the Seven, are still the bad ones, but at least they're the well-produced bad ones that make money. And then we get the big joke of the episode, which is a bunch of celebrities being stupid versions of themselves, which is something that will never get old, especially because I haven't seen these actors do that this much. Seth Rogen will do it from time to time, but Camille Nanjiani, Will Forte, Christopher Mintz-Plasse, like comedians doing this, comedians playing dumb comedians, or people who take themselves really seriously, super funny. Watching them brainstorm an Atlantic article is great. Again, this is back to Seth Rogen being kind of on a roll right now, being responsible for producing The Boys, Invincible, the Ninja Turtles movies I love, and The Muppets. Like, it's great to see him here and associate himself again with this show. And I'm glad he got a big crazy death, but he was happy about that. Everything they're saying here is very funny. And I am curious, this isn't a plot hole. Don't worry, I'm not trying to poke holes in it. I'd love a reason in universe for why Camille Nanjiani is jacked, since I don't think they made an Eternals movie. Maybe there's like the Vought version of the Eternals that he worked on. I think that would be funny. I'd love to hear about that. Maybe in a spin-off something. That would be really funny though if we got the Camille Nanjiani version of Kingo off the ground, starring Camille Nanjiani in a different universe, and became very popular. It's like, see, Marvel, you had it. You just didn't know how to land that plane, but it was there. We see all the memorabilia in the vault, including all the Nazi stuff, which is funny. But another incredibly funny visual joke that gets paid off in a really satisfying way is the baby oil. As we know, associated with weird entertainment parties and P. Diddy. It's funny that he has all this here. I love that it's going to be used as a weapon later. And then, yeah, at this moment where it seems like everything's going to work out, another character, I believe, from Supernatural, who is not on Gilmore Girls, so I'm not as familiar with him. The actor's name is Misha Collins. He is a character here named Mal Chemical. Right, he was Gotham Knights Harvey Dent. Oh, yeah, well, that's something. But yeah, the idea that these guys take a shot at Homelander, expecting Soldier Boy to be on board, and Soldier Boy, for many reasons, feels connected to Homelander, feels responsible for Homelander, and I think mostly sees these people making jokes about Homelander and feels like they're people making jokes about him. So he goes and he kills all the celebrities by throwing them at the Speedster, which also stops the Speedster, which is really funny, especially because that's how this show started. Right? Like, A-Train ran through Robin. Now Soldier Boy is weaponizing that, and then we find out that Bombsight probably did have the V1, so I imagine we're going to meet him next episode. But yeah, that fight scene, fun. I'm kind of bummed that character's head exploded. If any of you guys listen to this, because I love the show, huge fan, all I want is the Madam Web fake poster. You send that to me, I will frame it. It will go right in the middle of my office because it will be treated with such honor. And I just think that's an incredible joke. Then we get the end of the episode, the last big Firecracker finale. And it's a great scene because we know Firecracker's right about all of this. Because she knows. She has come to terms with who she is and what she's doing. And addressed it in a way that she hadn't really before. Where she still had the Jesus action figure because she did think there was a way back from that. But then she throws it away because she's like, nope. All in on Homelander. This is what we're doing. This is how I'm going to get through this. But it's too late because she had sex with his dad. Although, to be fair to Homelander, in that moment, he fired her, which is something you would probably fire both of them for. But she presses her luck and ends up saying the thing that breaks Homelander's brain, which is,
We all need love, don't we? Even God.
because that's what Homelander's trying to do. He's trying to become God instead of get love, because he's been told by everybody this season he's never going to be happy. He's never going to be loved. Not by continuing to be a cruel monster, but he doesn't think he can change that part of himself. So he has to go higher up, ascend to a point where love doesn't matter. And here's Firecracker accidentally telling him that's not going to work either. Even God needs love. And for that, she gets eagle-winged to the head. One of the most memorable deaths, I would say, on the show. A lot of the deaths on the show are like, oh, a guy gets exploded, and you're like, yeah, that guy blew up or something. It doesn't usually leave you with an image. Sometimes you'll see like a corpse, like Stormfront, but like this is one of those images that really will stick with you. Just because I think the show is working really well. I know this was not everybody's favorite episode. I'm sure there are people who will say this is their least favorite episode. I personally think it is one of the best episodes the show has put together in a while. It's the first episode of the show that I think I have seen recently and has made me go, I wish this show wasn't ending, because I want more of this. Because obviously this episode made me love Firecracker, a character I've been a big fan of since pretty much she showed up. It made me appreciate new Black Noir. It made me feel very good about where Sister Sage is. She's got her little, I want to create an apocalypse so I can read in peace and quiet, which reminds me of a show I'm sure a lot of you guys are reminded of, called The Twilight Zone, an episode called Time Enough at Last, which was the same thing about a guy who just wanted to read books, and then he goes into a vault, and then he survives a nuclear apocalypse, and he's in a wasteland by himself, and he's able to read all the books he wants, but then he breaks his glasses, oh no. And that reminds me of a video I watched recently by a creator I love named Captain Midnight. He just started a series called Showrunners, where he looks at different people who created television shows, and the most recent episode at the time of this taping is the episode about Rod Serling, the creator of The Twilight Zone. The man had a very interesting life, very interesting philosophy, and it created one of the most iconic television shows of all time. So I think it's worth, if you like these shows that have been influenced by The Twilight Zone, it's worth giving it a look. And you can watch that video along with all my videos early and ad-free, and tons of other stuff exclusively on this video sponsor, Nebula. Nebula is where you should be watching these. It's the creator-owned subscription streaming service that I helped to create. So basically all my videos, that's Nando V Movies videos, and the Nando Cut videos too, go on Nebula first. You can watch them without ads. You can download them to watch them offline. It is without a doubt the best way to watch my videos. You can also, on Nebula, watch tons of exclusive videos. On his channel Slow News Day, Tom Nichols talks about news like phone bans and Keir Starmer, someone I mostly knew about up until this point from SNL UK. Or how about the Mooney video called How Butts Became the New Boobs? Pretty self-explanatory and worth a watch. And then there's Tom Scott, whose new show England drops a week early on Nebula. This week, he drives a little boat from a part of his childhood that's difficult to explain but makes him so happy. Look at this guy's face. Pure joy. And Nebula is already a steal at $5 a month, or just $60 a year. But if you go to go.nebula.tv/thenandocut, you can get a year of Nebula for just $30. That is $2.50 a month. It is an amazing deal. Again, go to go.nebula.tv/thenandocut to check it out. Thank you for watching this. We got 3 more episodes. We will be back next week with more of the boys. That's all I got. Stay safe. I'll see you around.